Hey everyone, it's the Eclectic Handyman here on my 5-burner Sam's Club member mark gas grill, and today I'm going to be replacing the burners, the hood tents, and the cooking surface. Let's get it fixed. All right, let's see where I am right at this stage. Only thing I've done is removed the cooking surface from here, and really that's what I was starting with. Was I wanted to get these replaced. So if we can look at these for a minute. The original ones are porcelain coated cast iron. Now I love cast iron, but that darn porcelain coated part, I tell you what, once it starts to flake off after years of cooking and those sharp pieces, and you keep chasing after it, and then you get all this debris on it, and I just don't like it. So I'm actually going to be converting over to stainless steel. If they made just plain cast iron for this replacement, I would do that. So this is what I was starting with, is to replace this. Some more of that flaking off of the porcelain from the cast iron cooking surface. But what I ended up seeing after getting in here is that there's actually holes at the end of some of these burners, and that makes sense why it's so hot over here versus here. And so we need to get in there and replace that, as well as the heat tents that sit on top like this. So I've gotten all the parts from Amazon, and we're going to replace those today. Now, the first thing I had to do after removing the hood tents, which just come out by hand, as well as the cooking surface, was to get ready to remove the burners. The thing is, these crossovers that exist on the back of the burners, they're held in by a cotter pin and a post, but they are so old on mine that they literally just flaked away by hand. There were a couple that I did have to remove, and all you need to do is use a pair of needle nose pliers. You can pull that cotter pin out, and once you have the cotter pin out, which looks like this, and this post will come out from the burner, and then you should be able to remove these crossover tubes. These come in the new kit as well. I'll leave all the parts numbers below from Amazon that I got, but the reason that I'm doing this is because this grill I bought new several years ago, probably 7 or 8 years ago, for $400, and I've looked at getting a replacement of comparable functionality, and we're looking at like $500 to $700 because of price change. And I only spent $150 or less on the parts that I need today. So rehabbing a grill like this is just much more reasonable than buying an entire new grill. Now, if I had any problems with, like, say, the casing or anything like that, or the housing of the grill, then it'd be time to get rid of the grill. All right, so let's take a look at what I need to do. So the ignitors are right here, and believe it or not, all the ignitors still work nicely. But the problem is getting these burners out. Every grill's a little bit differently. Sometimes once you get to them and unbolt them, you just pull them out and then you put in the new one. But this one, not so much. Those ignitors are fixed inside of here. The only reason that I got this one removed was because I broke off the little post. So there's a little post on each one of these. The other thing is there's a wire on the end of it that attaches right here to where the igniter is. Now, I've gone ahead and removed it. It's just this plastic nut right here, and the whole assembly went down inside, and so the wires for it are down below, and it's difficult to see. It's under here, but the wires are all there. The problem is I can't get to it. I really need this plate to come off, and so we've got a little bit of a puzzle. The fuel lines for these knobs right here are behind it, and that's where they're all attached. So what ideally I need to do is try to get this to come back and off. But when I assembled this was already one piece. So there's some screws under here. I'm going to attempt to take that off. So let's try to get this piece off and see if we can get at it. All right, so I'm under one of the side shelves, and the idea is that ultimately we need this piece, which is the front, to come off, but we need the shelves to come off. And I vaguely remember the assembly, but basically these screws right here, and then it comes over into here. It's like one piece. Then there's this one and this one. So that's 6. And that should let us to slide off this shelf. And then I'm hoping that this one and this one on both sides will let us get at that front. I will tell you, you have got to have some bolt loose or some rust release spray like this, because these bolts, they were pretty tough to get off. And I recommend a large flathead screwdriver. Even though that's Phillips head, you can get much better torque on these. So spray them. If you strip them, game over. Really, then you're looking at a really tough project, or, you know, probably just going to a next grill or something like that, because drilling these out or trying to get them out is going to be a pain. Spray them, wait 10 minutes, and then get at them. I was able to break all loose. So it's the same on both sides. The main difference on the other side is you've got this burner in the way, but all the screws are in the same place. So one of the things about this gas line right here is for the whole project, but not just for the side, make sure we go ahead and turn off that propane and go ahead and remove that. That way it'll give it some flex here. All right, let's get those shelves off. Just to remind, these 4 right here, they actually don't have to be removed. They can just be loosened. It's the 2 up there that need to be removed. So I've only taken out 2 screws. Then what can happen is it just slides off. You leave those screws on there, and then I just have a box that I'm using to hold that shelf. And the reason is because there's an igniter on it and I can't get this detached right now, plus the gas hose. So I'm just using this as a means to an end, because remember, what I'm really after is getting this to come forward. So I just, just something that's just a means to an end to get it held for a few minutes. The other side's much easier because there's nothing attached. You can just take it off. All right, with the easy shelf on the other side removed, and now this one, my hope is that this screw here and this screw here that I already have loosened, when I loosen on both sides, will allow this plate to come forward, which will access the igniters off the switch. We can remove them, and then we can start replacing our burners. That's what I'm hoping, at least. All right, with the same 2 screws on the other side, let's hope this comes off. Oh, yes, 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 yes. Okay, the only thing holding it up is this long igniter on the side. But hey, I can get to everything that I need. Okay, from up top here, now I can get access to all of those burners. They've been removed. There's the igniters that I can pull out each one by one. That box actually could have stayed probably mounted. I was kind of trying to figure that out, but this box right here, see that's that set screw that goes in there. But this is what I need. See, I didn't want to have to tie a little rope to one of these and then pull it through and then pull it back. So this is great that we can access it. Okay, now the last real tricky step on my particular grill are all these. Now I could tell if I go over to this side burner and cheat a little bit, that those igniters were actually held in by a screw. Well, that one looks real nice because I barely use that side burner. Well, over here, yeah, that's a disaster. They just crumbled off from so much heat. So basically, I'm going to, in my case, going to have to break them off. Now, if you didn't, you could unscrew that, and then the igniter would come out, and we could do that. I wish I was in that shape, but I'm not, and I've already broken one of them off purposely. So, all right. So what we have to do is the igniter has to come forward because of that tip. So we actually have to unplug one igniter at a time, pull it through, remove the burner, and we will connect, again, those crossovers. So let me go ahead and get one of these done. I'm also going to go ahead and use a shop vac to clean up some of this debris before I start getting into all this work, so that way this stuff's not falling on top of me. All right, let's go ahead and remove one of the burners. All we have to do after we've removed the old pin that's holding it in back there in the crossover, this is now loose. And now with this off, it's out of the insert that goes into the burner. So we just want to follow the igniter wire, pull it out, and that will allow us to then, there's not much extra clearance. You can kind of go up on it and then just kind of turn it sideways and out it comes. So now we need to remove the igniter, reinstall it on the new one, and install it back in. One trick I found too, if the old pin, the dowel and cotter pin are jammed or stuck and you can't get them out, a multi-tool like this will cut it right off. It was pretty easy. I've got one more like over here, and just be careful with it vibrating. Plus it's super loud. But anyway, I have a video on this tool. I will link to it up here, but this does come in pretty handy. Again, I know you're probably watching through this and going, the heck with all this work, but it's so hot in here and all this deterioration. But honestly, it's working pretty nicely once I just get the old parts out. All right, let me show you what's supposed to happen. I can't believe it, but one of these burners, the one that I use the least, actually, this screw is still intact. So I did the same thing like the PB Blaster or the Rust-Away, and using a flathead, I am actually able to turn this screw, barely, back out. One of the nice things is I could probably figure out what size machine screw this is and get some replacements for the new ones. But if you're able to preserve the screws on your igniter, then you should try to. So I'm going to try to see if any. I think this is the only one. All right. I don't want to lose it on the deck here. Okay. There's the screw. There's the igniter. And then it pulls through. All right. So quick trip over to Ace Hardware. And I got some replacement screws. I forget. I know it's metric. I can't remember if it was metric 4 or 5, but it was on the small side. So again, we just need to thread this back through. And the igniter obviously points toward the burner. And we will begin threading it through. And honestly, I think this screw is a little bit longer than the original. It doesn't matter. There we go. Bingo. Exactly. And then it points right towards that burner, so it'll light it. All right, this one's ready to install. All right, on this burner, I'm not so lucky. That screw is completely just ruined, and it's not moving. So I'm going to attempt to drill it out. I don't like this design with these igniters, the way that they're mounted in here. I mean, even if I cut this, the problem is that bracket that's part of the igniter. That's the only way to mount it to the other one. So I absolutely need to get this screw out. Let me see how it goes. All right, it worked. And it didn't take but a minute or two. I was using some cobalt bits that are pretty strong for metal, but sure enough, that came out. Sorry about the focus there. And now I'll be able to insert this in the new one. So I know somebody might be watching that, and that's a little bit intimidating as to the heck with that. I'm getting a new grill, but one strong drill bit on this old bolt drilling straight through the middle, and it just came apart. So I know that's not fun, but that really wasn't that difficult. So one thing you might be thinking right now, and the answer is already yes, why not just buy new igniters and then not have to deal with this? Leave them on the old burner and just toss the whole thing. Yes, yes, and triple yes. The deal with mine is they were working. So to save a few dollars, I wasn't going to buy them. And this isn't that difficult. But honestly, if I was watching this and I'm like, I don't want to be drilling out some old broken off, rusted bolts that have been through the grill heat, buy yourself a set of igniters with the burners, and then you don't have to deal with it. Just the whole assembly, unplug and plug back in. We're good to go. Let's get this in the new burner. All right, we got the new burner with the igniter installed. So to install it, we just need to thread this down through this hole. So put the wire through the hole, pivot it up, guide it through, and you'll see on the front where it might snag a little bit. So just kind of give it a little bit of help. It'll pop through. Watch that igniter on the front. Rest it up there for now. Oh, and don't forget, once you pull that wire back through for the igniter, go ahead and reconnect it its original spot. They only go on one certain way, so just make sure you've got it right, and they will gently slide on back through. This way we do one at a time. I don't think it really matters, but we can just route them the same. We'll do the crossovers lastly, and there we go. Let's wash, rinse, repeat all the way across. We'll do the crossovers and keep moving on. All right, so we got all the burners installed, all the igniters reinstalled, and they're plugged back in. Now, I'm going to say 110% if I was to do this again, I would have invested in the igniters. That was an hour and a half of drilling out the old ones that was not worth it. I would definitely buy those igniters. But because mine work, I did save a little money. And I've got all the new screws in them that I got from Ace Hardware, but I would not go to that effort. I would have just thrown away the whole assembly, used new igniters, would have probably come with new mounts, or you could get those screws at Ace, piece of cake. All right, at this point too, what I recommend is getting the front fascia with the knobs reinstalled. Remember, it's just 2 screws on each side. And when you do that, you want to make sure that the flow of the knob does go in to the channel of the burner. And you can also use this as a little access to see how in there it goes into that burner. And you also want to make sure that your wires aren't getting pinched, but you can see that all of those are properly in there. But it's a little difficult to see with the sun there, but it is ideal to get this in place actually before we go ahead and install those crossovers. All right, it's time to install the crossover. So I only have one intact from the original setup. And the way they work is they go right here and they use the dowel and cotter pin, and essentially allowing the flame, I think, to go through this channel right here. With the new one, they use a screw and nut combination. So it's going to be mounted right there with a screw and a nut on the bottom, so you have to hold it, and it goes right in the middle. So it's a slightly different design, but same principle. I think the main difference between kind of this one and the old one, if we compare the two, it's about the same width, but these wings that go up over the burner a little bit longer. But all in all, this should do about the identical purpose. So let's go ahead. There were a few extra parts on mine because I did look at the pictures from the manufacturer. So essentially we need 1, 2, it'll go under there, obviously 3, and 4 to the end. And then we can start putting everything back together. And just to show you some of the parts that came with it, again, those crossover for the burners that are all out of the package, those are the heat tents, some nuts and bolts. And again, I think this may have possibly been able to be used for more than one model because these end pieces right here, I don't see how they're going to be needed, nor these mounting plates. I saw on the diagram how they are, but they're not needed. So again, if you look at the part and what I did, the picture they did with the Rehab and the parts they supply, the pictures in the Rehab show identical what was there before, and then what they send you is a little bit more, maybe again for a slightly different model. So, all right, let's install them. All right, one thing I did want to check with those extra single pieces, they will slide in right here, and what that gives you the option is an extended length crossover if needed. And I thought maybe that would be the right extra length to go right in between, but it turns out that when I check, it's just too wide. So this must be maybe for a different model, but it does give that flexibility. All right, so I've got the crossovers in place. Again, one of the things when you're screwing in initially, it's a little bit difficult into the burner, but it will go through, and then it'll go through the hole on the bottom. Then you just want to secure a nut on the bottom. And so you probably get your hands down in there. There we go. Because they're brand new screw and nut, they're really easy to get on there. And then we'll just have to secure them. I'll be honest with you, the grill doesn't go through a lot of movement, at least this one. It's not really a portable grill. So if you can't get a wrench too easily up under there, you could probably just hold it with your hands. It's just enough to secure them in place so that if you do roll the grill around, they're not rocking around and rolling. There's a little bit of lateral movement to make these in the middle as best as you can. And you just want to get them as most you can. It looks like the one on the end, though, I don't have any more room over there, but the other ones are right in place. So I've got got one of my Craftsman swivel ratcheting wrenches here. That'll help a little bit. Can get under there a little bit easier. Bingo. Got that there. Tighten that down. And there you have it. Now, this came in really handy. I have a video on my channel about these wrenches if interested. That was pretty nice. These screws and nuts I did separately outside the grill because you don't need to do that inside the grill. So those were mounted. I already showed you. So the only ones I need to tighten up are these ones now. Again, once you have them in place. Perfect. All right, let's do the other ones. We'll get the heat tents put on and the cooking surface. All right, all those burners are secure, the crossovers, everything's good here. It's about time to do a test, but we want to make sure that we go ahead and at least put a few screws back in this and hook this back on, just because I'm going to hook up the propane and I don't want this thing dangling. Before I reassemble everything and put the heat tents and everything, I want to make sure that I'm getting gas into all of these successfully. So I'm going to go ahead and reconnect the propane and start it up. All right, got the propane connected. And the good news is I haven't lit it. All my igniters are still working. So at least I didn't bust any of them in the process. So let's go ahead and turn on a couple. Oh yeah, here we go. 2, 3, 4, and 5. I don't know if the camera's picking them up, but they are definitely all lit. And you can see how that crossover is working too, because it kind of channels, it looks like the gas and the flame in between the two. Wow, those are really burning nicely. All right, let's go ahead and turn them off and we'll finish assembly. All right, now it's time to put on the new heat tents. Unfortunately, my wood chip tray here, they do sell this part. It's only about 30 bucks, but the top is discontinued. So there's not much I can do about that. Again, replacing these parts is probably giving me another 3 to 5 years on this grill before I have to, I don't know, go back to Sam's Club and get another good deal, or really fork out the money and get like a Weber Genesis, whatever it's called, something top of the line. I usually go through these things so much that I just prefer to get maybe a more reasonable one. I'm telling you, this is a great grill. It looks a little dirty. That's just because I've been working on it, but I'm going to do the stainless steel and get this all cleaned up before cooking today. But these heat tents, nothing magical to them. Just put them on the old post right here and rest them down. Now, again, one of the things about the grill when it's time to decide that you can't rehab it is if you have serious rusting on the inside and like the casing is starting to fall apart, then that's going to be really difficult. You're either going to have to see if they still carry the larger parts of the grill, but that time you have such an investment, you might as well buy a new grill. So let me go ahead and put the other heat tents on here. There are 5 included in the kit. And then we can put on the new surface. And there's a look at the pile of the old parts there. You know, if I had a sandblaster, who knows, maybe I could keep these, get it down to the cast iron, season them and use them again. But again, it's not a professional grill. And if anybody's wondering, was this caused by the elements and leaving it out in the open? Not completely, because as you can see right here, I do cover the grill. So this is just wear and tear from, again, I think this grill's 7 or 8 years old. It has got a lot of meals cooked on it, but eventually this is what happens. So yeah. All right. The final step for me is to put on my new cooking surface. You may not, you may be able to reuse your old one. You may just be replacing the burner. I'm going to go with this stainless steel. To each his own. This is a little bit easier to clean. Wow, that looks pretty nice. This was made for this grill. I will season this per instructions. You know, I'll put some cooking oil on this and let it bake for about 45 minutes. That's pretty nice. I like it. We've already done the test and we're complete. I think that was, you know, if you condense that down, that was probably 2 or 3 hours, I don't know, of back and forth. I did make a trip to Ace, had to figure some things out. But all in all, what we ended up doing, just to recap, is, you know, you got to take off the two shelves. Let's get this tripod out of the way. You got to take off the two shelves. That gives access to this, that'll pop down. We can pull out all the burners. We can get the crossovers out. We had to do some cleaning up. I did use a shop vac to clean up inside of here. We put all the new parts back in, reassembled it, tested it, and we've got several more years on this. Again, I wish I could get that wood chip tray, but we'll be all good. Anyway, hope this helped. Again, on this Sam's Club 5-burner gas grill, I'm going to clean all this up, make it look real shiny, and barbecue some hot dogs. Of course, that's tongue-in-cheek. We can do something more fun than that. Anyway, hope you found this helpful. And until next time, this is the Eclectic Candyman. We'll see you later.